Welcome to the Data Coffee Break podcast. I'm Marc.
And I'm Christian.
If you are passionate about data like us, take a seat, relax, and join us to our coffee break where we discuss all things data.
And remember, there are no filters, no PR.
It's just a real life experience. So let's begin. My flatmate did the Hackney Half Marathon.
Yeah.
So went there, like another friend as well. So went to support them, trying frenetically to look where they are, trying to recognize them, like through the crowd. More than 20,000 people apparently are running this one. So it's quite massive, blocking all the roads, obviously.
You didn't do the marathon, right, in London?
No, because of my back. I mean, it's better now, but I went to see a specialist, and it's just your body telling you, like, be careful. And it's basically saying, like, you're aging, dude.
Chill out.
It's like, okay, cool. I was a bit frustrated today, like, because I was supposed to run actually the Hackney Half as well. I was seeing like people like running, motivating, like, I want to be with them. Some people will be like, I don't care. I'm happy to be on the side and just watch. But I was like,
exactly. Yeah.
No, but it's recovering normal. I mean, it's not as easy compared to when we were younger, you know?
Yeah, definitely. Starting from because now everyone on LinkedIn knows that you just change job.
Yeah.
Right? This means that you for sure came...
I'm pretty fresh
on today's topic, right?
So basically right now you're interviewing me about my interview, or did I conducted my interview as an interviewee?
Exactly. I'm interviewing about your interview.
Okay.
Because it's quite a thing.
This is a topic part for everyone, because in the technology industry and in the data industry, it's fairly... And we see that when you look at profiles of people, it's fairly common to move job every 2, 3, or 4 years, compared to some other roles where people like to be there in the company organization and stay in the same role or actually move up in the ladder within the company. But I kind of feel like doing interview externally compared to doing the interview internally is a kind of big difference. So maybe today we actually focusing on interviewing for a different organization.
Yeah, I was reading today an article talking about the fact that IT or technology sectors, when compared to, for example, other professions such as accountants or lawyer, it's quite a younger profession, right? So IT might be less than 100 years. And the point of this is that people in IT develop loyalty sometimes to the technology stack rather than the actual company that they work for, right? And
very true.
This was this article from Bill Inman when he was talking about this, right? The fact that, for example, an accountant or a lawyer may feel more connected to the actual company because they see a direct benefit. Or if you, for example, work on the supply chain or the producing of the goods or services, you are there. But if you're in the tech side of things, maintaining servers or maintaining databases or writing reports, you feel more in love with the tech stack. I mean, it was just a point of view on how to see it, or on why this was actually happening so much on the tech side of things, this rotation or attrition within company.
I wouldn't know actually the real reason. There is an aspect of like technical stack. Like software engineers, they will change companies and they will end up in completely different sector in some aspects. But obviously, they're going to focus on the same technical stack they've been learning and hopefully loving and liking.
So both of us changed jobs within the last couple of years. Can you take me through your train of thought or to the process that you follow to actually find a new job when you started interviewing? How does it all start?
Oh, wow. Yeah. I think a big part of it is what we always say, but it's always difficult to actually act on it, which is step back and try to analyze what you really want.
Yeah.
It's such a difficult task to handle for some people. Some people are extremely clear in their mind. Some also struggle a bit more. So it's basically in the meaning like what kind of technology stack, as we were speaking, you're interested about, in particular in the data space, there is some interest of understanding, let's say, at which level you want to act. Do you want to act as a data engineer? Do you want to act as a business analyst, or can go on, or you can be like specialist on the database side, etc. So figuring out that and what motivates you the most, but also what kind of path you want in terms of career. So that's a big part, I would say, as a start. After, it's important to be organized. It's for people who are working in sales, they will easily understand that you need to create your pipeline of interviews. Except some people are maybe well connected or can get on the job very easily, or like be reached out by a headhunter and they just go through 1 or 2 interviews and that's it. They're finding the right opportunity for them. But let's say for people who are proactively looking maybe with a bit less experience, you need to be quite organized and maybe create your spreadsheet, use a note-taking app to basically follow each application and make sure you don't miss any steps. Could be like after an interview, it can be like reaching out for more information. It can be preparation for the interview, etc. Yeah.
Did you use a recruiter?
On my side for the current role, yeah. So been contacted in this case by a recruiter. Yeah. But I also been proactive for some of the interview I went through. So it's basically me as a candidate sending my CV to answer some job offers that I can see online, directly on their website or on LinkedIn, for example.
Yeah. That's interesting, right? Because, I mean, you mentioned 2 really important things. One is to take a step back and think about whether the role that you are doing is the one that you want to keep doing. So you need to understand the role. Some people would like to move from consultancy, maybe to more management. Maybe they don't have the credentials, and they believe that then they need to start as a more junior position. But you mentioned there, like, understanding the role. And the second is like, you need to be organized on the pipeline. Well, I guess then, especially for those companies where you applying yourself, you had different type of CVs depending on the role. I guess you had to, tailor them.
So the idea was obviously to make sure that I have obviously a set of technical skills or soft skills, as some people like to say. But it's good to don't have a CV where you put absolutely everything. That's my point of view. And that's where I will tailor my CV to actually match their requirements based on what I have as experience. So I don't know. Let's say it's important for the role to have some Python knowledge. Well, in one of your experience, you actually work quite extensively with Python. Put it, write it down, explain what kind of projects. So you can actually detail as part of the CV for 2-3 lines saying, in this job, I worked specifically with Python and this is kind of analytics and here are the outcome thanks to what you've been doing within this role. So that's my point of view, where you handpick within your experience, within your toolkit of, I don't know if it's the best way to basically show for specific role. Obviously, we cannot meet every single criteria that an employer. That's actually a good tip. Don't believe that if you don't have 1 or 2 of those, let's say, listed criteria, requirements from a job offer, don't think that you cannot basically apply for it. This is the ideal candidate. It's difficult to find the ideal candidate. So I would always advise to apply, even if you miss some of those. If you don't have all those requirements, or required skills, required experiences.
I 100% agree with you. I think it's very difficult to find the ideal candidate. Sometimes even depending on the type of job, even the previous experience is what matters the most. Sometimes even the companies that you work for.
Yeah, true. Actually,
and some places that I have the opportunity to interview, they even have an automated process. Sometimes even a machine, right, that checks the CV, and if they found like certain keywords in terms of experience or companies, then your your CV will picked, right? So that's a good one.
Yeah. So in those one, clearly having the right keywords matching the job description is so important if you want to go through this first step, literally.
I would say something a bit controversial, but if you're working in your country with a visa, back when I needed a tier 2 visa here in the UK, I used to have it in my CV that I was working under a visa. The reason for that was because I just didn't want to waste some people's time. And I totally believe that the moment that I removed that line from my CV, I started receiving way more phone calls from recruiters or from the companies. Sometimes, of course, I started finishing the call in the first 10 seconds by saying like, I need a visa. And then, okay, yeah, the initial conversation finished. But one company actually said like, no problem. If you pass through the interviews, we will find a way to actually get you a sponsorship. So I'm just going to give it away. This is just a bit of food for thought. Put it or not put it. Maybe a recruiter may not be happy of me saying these kind of things because sometimes that's how they remove some candidates out of the pipeline based on their visa. And that's fair, right? Not every company do sponsorships, but sometimes what you need is just opportunity.
Yeah.
Right? Just one chance to be interviewed.
And I strongly believe, to your point, okay, this is having that on your CV, that's putting kind of like a filtering step because they have those criteria. Yeah. Getting on the phone with the headhunter or internal recruiter and maybe them taking the time to know you a bit better, looking at your CV a bit more in depth, can actually help them to change their mind. And where initially they were unsure they were going to do the sponsorship for the visa, or they were pretty much saying like, no, we're not going to do it, but they realized that the profile is so good that they shouldn't miss this opportunity to basically help the person to go through the visa process.
Now you have a pipeline. What came next? Yeah, you have your interviews lined up. What do you do?
All right. Well, so I'm actually going to quote one of our previous guests that we had a couple of months ago. We met him for drinks, and he was telling us his experience to interview someone when this person joined the call. So it was the first step of the interview process. It was virtually. The interviewee didn't know the name of the company. Well, basically, he forgot to check his calendar, I guess.
Yes.
So imagine as well, his knowledge about what the company was doing was extremely poor to that level. So clearly, the most important thing you must do is take the time to look at the company, understanding the business, understanding their products, understanding their needs, etc., etc. I actually want to make a strong point and argument here. Well, it's not even an argument. I'm pretty convinced. Maybe I'm wrong, but I'm pretty convinced I'm right. Is you rather have less interviews, but be so well prepared about those interviews you're going through by understanding really the company and understanding their needs. I'm sorry, like if I went through the process of interviewing some individuals, and when they come to me and understand our market, understand the competitors, understand potentially, I don't know, it could be different aspect, but you can genuinely see that this person went through the website, read a bit about some of the products, been able to articulate correctly the thought, use the right keywords. I would say, like, we all have different specific terms in our organization, in our products. This really already, let's say, breaks the barrier during the first interview, in my point of view. I don't know what's your experience around that.
Yeah, I was going to say that what you just mentioned comes with experience. If I my current job, I think, is number 1, 2. I think it's number 5. So this is the 5th company that I work in my career. And if I look back, I definitely had much less interviews, but they were quite strong, right? I mean, in the sense of I knew exactly which companies I wanted to work for based on previous experience, based on this. And when compared, for example, like 7 years ago when I changed my job in consultancy, I did like, I don't know, 20 something, more than 20, right? I was a bit too like, I really want to move, but let's not go there. But the point is that you really need to be respectful from other people's time as well.
Absolutely.
Right? I mean, because someone took the time to read your CV, prepare for that interview, look at your profile on LinkedIn, which I really believe that alongside your CV, you need to have some LinkedIn polish when you decide to interview again, to go back.
Yeah, update your LinkedIn.
Yes. So I think that also it's important, right, to consider. Otherwise, what's the point? And less is more in this case.
Yeah.
So I have a question for you. Did you upskill ahead of doing your interviews, especially because you were working for almost 7 years at your previous job?
Upskill, yes, definitely. First, I got the habit within my role to always try to find the opportunity to learn new skills. I have a fairly technical role. It's also mixed with like sales acumen, obviously. So it's not solely focused on the technical aspect, but I always try to find the opportunity to upskill myself within the role on other technologies because it's actually relevant for the job. I was definitely in particular based on the area I wanted to focus in terms of like next job. I was actually taking the time to learn new technologies in my case for that. So it could be, if it's a different aspect of a job you're looking for, like it could be like upskilling more on the soft skills, I don't know, negotiation skills, for example. So that's always advised. In particular, you want to show as well to the recruiter, to the person who is going to interview you, that as we were speaking a little bit before, you might not have every single requirements on this job description, but you actually showing that you're actually upskilling right now on one of those points. This is a massive win, clearly. Actually, on my side, I have a question for you because I've been mentioning job description multiple times. It happens sometimes that the role that is described could be not very clear. In particular, if you're considering to do a bit of a side move, let's say, or organization you want to move to is having a different way to define things. Like, did you end up applying for jobs, going for interview where you didn't understood correctly what the role was basically about?
Oh yes.
Oh yes. That's pretty clear.
Oh, yes. And
did you get the job?
Once.
Tell us.
Once, and I don't regret. I learned a lot. I think the understanding is really good. And again, I think that came with experience. Right? It was lack of experience when I got into that one in particular, because I was doing consultancy and then ended up doing consultancy with a mix of management. And the role description was more around development. I was supposed to be a developer and ended up doing consultancy and management. But that has to do more with the...
What do you mean by development?
You can imagine just doing software engineering, at the product side. But I ended up working...
development like software, yeah.
Yeah, but I ended up working like a client-facing.
Oh.
And that has to do with a lack of experience when I talk about in terms of job descriptions, because I didn't understand properly. And I guess that has to do with the upskilling. I really needed to upskill on the next one to prepare questions for the interview in a better way. And that sounds very silly, right? Because, you might say, of course I have questions, right? Like questions are on the lines of how long is your team? This is super important, by the way. Prepare questions for your interview.
I remember in the past you were telling me that you ended up interviewing some individuals where some of them didn't ask any question to you or at the end, and you felt like it was a bit more difficult to move forward with a candidate like that. And I can understand. You're wondering like if they're actually motivated.
Exactly. That was part of my experience, right? So I had these very generic questions like, what are the timelines for the role? How big is the team? Which are really super important, of course, right? To ask about at least who is going to be the team. And actually nowadays, whether working from home versus working from the office, culture is such an important thing. But I really think that preparing questions, like becoming better at that, will also actually give you a better idea of the role. Mm-hmm. Once you get better at asking questions, And especially on these companies where you have multiple steps, each one of the steps, the questions are different that you need to ask. And all of those are towards better understanding the role that you're going to be doing. That's my point of view.
And you're actually touching on something a bit different, but you're touching on different steps of the interview. It's widely different. And again, from my very latest experience going through interview processes, companies have widely different process when it comes to interviews. Some of them have something extremely structured, where in my case, it was in the data industry, like you have like an interview with the recruiters and an interview with the hiring manager. Then you have like a technical assessment, you have a technical assignment as well. And after you have like more sales assessment in my case. So it's extremely thorough from their point of view because they want to compare candidates on the same basis. But other companies will have something more, I would say, loosely coupled, not saying that is actually of a lower quality, but they will value more the personal interaction they will have with you, and they will vet your technical abilities in other ways. Sometimes simply by the role you were having in the past is actually sometimes vetting your technical abilities.
Quick one. If you're enjoying this episode and our show, please make sure you follow us on LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. Links are in the description as per usual.
Also, if you'd like to grow this community with us, think about sharing this episode with a friend or a colleague interested about all things data.
Now, back to the episode.
On the day of the interview, could you tell us how do you prepare or what happens on the day of the interview?
I mean, it depends if it's in person or virtual, but...
Oh, yeah, that's starting from there. Yeah.
Okay, let's try virtual first. I guess. It does seem that now most of interviews will start virtually. I mean, it's always been like that. I would say, like, we always start with like at least a call. Make sure you prepare like your internet or backup of internet. We already discussed that when it comes to demo or something like that. But like, if you can have like your phone ready to hotspot, if you know that your internet is unstable, it's so important.
Exactly.
There is that. I mean, coming on time. Checking the technology. Let's say they invite you for a Zoom call and you don't have Zoom installed on your laptop, or you usually use another technology. Make sure to have that installed before and make sure it's working. It's okay. Interviewers are usually fine when there is some little technical issues, but it's just making for you actually as a person, as a candidate, the experience a bit difficult because you're stressing out when you actually could have dealt with that before. What could be other things? Could be obviously the way you dress.
The way you dress, yeah. That's part of knowing the company that you are applying for, right? And the role.
Again, like a person who we spoke with, one of our guests who interviewed someone.
Yes.
So he had the first call virtually. The candidate was not even looking at the camera. He was basically sideways. I guess he had two screens and he basically was looking the other side. So he was not even looking at the camera. So I would be like, if I interview a person like that, it will be quite a deal breaker. The person not even takes the decency. I don't know if decency is the right word, but the decency to look the camera and to correctly. We're not asking to be like in the full suit, but please.
But at least care. You know what I usually have, and I give that away for interviews, especially on the virtual ones. I have my notes on the right side, and my notes meaning that it's not a complete set of canned answers that I will have, but at least some pointers, especially on those interviews on the STAR model. You know, situation, task, action, result.
So important
to practice that or to have them prepare at least, right?
Can you detail that for the audience? Because I think it's such a fantastic tool.
Yeah, so basically most of the interviews nowadays, they follow a framework. They call it the STAR framework, which I mentioned is situation, task, action, result. But you can think about as every time that they ask you, tell me about a time that you have a difficult situation and you figure out the solution. So this is a way to answer to those questions, right? You start with the situation. So for example, you need to be very specific, right? I was on my second job in 2015, and we were about to, we have a very tough deadline for a specific project. Then the task is like, this project was about, I don't know, deployed to production with very minimum room of for failure. And then the action needs to be about yourself, right? You need to be about yourself. Say like, once I noticed that, for example, my colleagues were not actually feeling well, I took over and I did the job for both of us, and I went above and beyond, and I worked weekends, and as a result of that, we had a very good deployment in production. Happy, the customer was happy. Make sure that it's relevant to the company that you're applying for, right? So if you told this story that I'm just saying about deploying in production to a management position, that doesn't make any sense. But I'm just giving an example of the STAR method, right? And there are many situations that you might be, right? Sometimes they will ask you, tell me about a time that you have a problem with a colleague, or sometimes tell me the best something. One that usually is get asked is, tell me about a project or an accomplishment that you're proud of. At least try to make sure that you have those notes on the side, right? So that's I will add it as part of the setup.
Definitely. A good framework. It really helps you to structure, because interviews can be stressful. So you end up like missing points you want to make, or starting to answer, and at some point you realize, what was the question again?
Yeah.
So that could be a thing. And actually on your point of using the STAR methodology, you can prepare them some very, I would say, quite easily, in the sense that if you take the job description, I like to mention the job description all the time, but
oh yes,
there is always a section where they speak about responsibilities, what you will do in the role. And if you can look at those one and actually find some stars around those different activities that are expected. So what you did in the past or in your current role that could match those one. So create your star, some notes using the STAR methodology for those one is very, very useful. I used it literally for my last couple of interviews.
That's a really great tip, I have to say. The only comment I will have there, as a person that also have interviewed other candidates, is that even if you don't think about it, it's very easy to identify when someone is not being authentic or honest. And that's what I would just say, right? I mean, if someone, don't stretch it. The person on the other side knows there is something about connection, about energy. I don't know. Even the body language that you can see when someone is not being authentic or genuine when you get these questions asked. So I would say it's better to say, I don't know, or I don't have experience there, but I'm trying not to say, I don't know, or I cannot do this. I would rather phrase it on the point of view, like, I haven't had the chance to work on it there, but I'm very open to try it, if you know what I mean, on these responsibilities. But I would prefer that answer than a made up one.
Yeah. Or maybe saying, kind of showing that there is an aspect where you can transfer those skills to that, to this aspect as well. Yeah, definitely. I have one that is important. I went through sometimes interviewing some candidates. Maybe it's because of the stress of the interview. Maybe it's them by nature. I don't know. But some of them, you can see they're not actively listening. And because they were not actively listening, they will like interrupt you and start to answer while they didn't listen to the end of the question or to the point we want to make. Or when they start to answer, they completely off the point. They didn't get the question literally because they were like thinking about something else. Or it's fine to ask to repeat the question. It's fine to ask to reformulate the question. Or you can take back what you understood and say, is it actually what you meant, what you want me to answer? Like, it's completely fine to ask that. I rather have a candidate asking me that rather than other candidates saying something completely opposite to what I asked.
Yeah. No, yeah, agree. Because as I say, right, sometimes you have just one shot. 30 minutes or 1 hour with one person, it may not be enough time to really make a judgment of it, but that's how it works, right? So
it's not a one-way communication where they ask you things. It's a two-way. Like you can, after answering one question, you can actually send back a question to the interviewer, like about curiosity, about some specificities about the role, the company. This is fine. Like make it a conversation, make it a nice experience for both of you.
absolutely. You need to remember that you're also interviewing the company.
Oh yeah.
Right. So you're being interviewed, but you're also interviewing. You want to know what is the culture, what is even as a tip, what I use, especially now on these virtual ones, you can even comment on the setup of the person interviewing.
Oh yeah.
So for example, if the person has, I don't know, a guitar on the back, so like, oh, you have a guitar. I mean, you play music or something, right? So you show some engagement, as you mentioned there, right? And you have some other type of conversation, even to break the ice, and just don't look at it like a transactional process.
Yeah. I just realized we've been speaking about like how to prepare for interview, etc. But our point is to make it a bit more specific for individuals in the data industry. Is there anything you think that are relevant for our audience to prepare, to discuss, or to be ready during the interview in particular as they want to work in the data industry?
I would just say be on top of the data trends.
Exactly. We have an episode for that.
Yeah, go back to the episode that we recorded with Ivan. But I generally believe that if you are a person on data or on any other domain, right, you need to know the ecosystem. You need to know the players. Your CV needs to be attached to it. Yeah, your CV needs to be referencing those, and be prepared sometimes even for exams. Sometimes there are companies that they give you an exam to take home or an exercise to do on the spot. You need to take the time to remove the rust out of you, if you're rusty, and practice on that, right? So that's something I would say for the data in particular. I think applies for every domain, but the data space is one that it's quite hot at the moment, and nowadays with LLMs and so on, I guess it's going to be even more. But that's what I would just say, right?
Yeah, definitely. Another one could be, if you done your research correctly, you understand what their business is about, what the product they're having. So maybe going a bit above it, beyond, from a data perspective, what does that mean in their company? What are the technologies that you can actually discuss during the interviews, or statistical models you can discuss during the interview that are relevant to their organization? You can ask questions around that, actually. I don't know. They have a product. You're curious to understand what they're aiming for. The other one, I think it's important. We're going to do an episode soon on that, is storytelling, data storytelling. Being able to present a thing in a neat way, to articulate correctly, to adapt in particular to the audience you have in front of you. That means during your interview, if you're applying for a data specific role, the interviewer is asking you something data related, maybe try to figure out a bit as well the technical knowledge of this person. So you will be able to adapt the lingo you're going to use. I ended up in some interviews where the person was not technical. So if you start to go like with very technical words, they're going to look at you like, I have no clue what you're talking about. Yeah. But they were basically asking a high level answer rather than like a deep dive answer to the question. I went for a long answer, long points of view, but I hope this could help.
I think you touched on an interesting one, which is also research. Interviewer, right?
Yeah,
research interviewer. Then again, especially in the data space, which is so competitive, you need to understand that when you are interviewing, you're in a competitive scenario. So you're competing, right? So the other person that is also applying for it, they are also doing the research. They're also preparing. Mm-hmm. They have their best accomplishment on the CV and on the STAR model. So come prepared with some good storytelling.
Yeah.
that is going to land well to the audience that you are talking to on the day.
Yeah. I feel this is a topic we could go discussing for hours, obviously.
Yes.
It's so important to, as an interviewee, to use your common sense. You're speaking to a person, to a real human being. So it's just make it a real conversation. Like some people answer like by yes or no, or yes, I did that in this situation. Boom.
Yes.
You feel like, okay, next question.
Yes.
Make it a conversation. Like you're facing a new human being. That actually make me think about the aspect of this is more on the soft side, human relation again. You're going to interview with your manager, your future manager. So it's important to feel always this dynamic working, to feel about all the relationship with the manager could go. Sometimes like even like you're interested about the role, but like you could feel straight from the interview, and hopefully you have different interviews, maybe 2 interviews with this person. It's good to figure out like if there could be a good match, if you could work together successfully. You also usually you can go to speak with some of your future colleagues. If they don't propose that during the interview process, you can ask actually. That's a good way to ask a bit more individuals that will be, let's say, at the kind of same role, same level than you, so you can go more specific.
This is actually quite important because no one that I've met yet thinks about getting a job just for a month. You are interviewing for something that could change your life, that you might be years doing it, right? So it's really, really, really important what you just mentioned there, right? To understand whether you have a connection or the other individuals that you're going to be working with. So that's the only thing I have to say on that. And if you have doubts about what you're saying, I mean, Mark and I, we met at work.
Yeah,
now we have a podcast.
Exactly. And we're still friends.
So, well, just to finalize, I guess, we can go for hours giving tips or experiences. I would say always follow up.
Oh, yeah.
After your interview. Send a quick note via the recruiter or directly to the person that interview you. I did once, and I don't know if that worked, but I got the offer. I reached out directly to the person that interviewed me via LinkedIn, just to say that I enjoy it. Not straight away.
So easy.
Yeah,
no?
not straight away. It was like a couple of days or a day after. I don't remember. But I just sent a message.
It sounds like in the dating situation.
Dating.
Should I send her a message now, right after the date finished, or should I wait how many hours?
I know.
That's the same in an interview.
Exactly.
But you're right.
That's a really good way to put it. Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
That was already quite a lot of tips, a lot of personal experiences we are sharing. We've been sharing with all of you. Curious to potentially hear the story from some of you. What were some of the craziest interviews you went through, or some of the best tips you think we have missed? Because for sure we have missed some of them that could be so important to go through that. So let us know. We will be very curious to know those ones.
Then with that, we can close this interview that we had today.
Oh, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
I will send you a follow-up. I will send you a follow-up message.
Yes.
I hope I'm getting the job.
Good. All right.
Thank you, Christian. And thank you, everyone.
Thanks for listening to this episode. This podcast represents our views and not the ones of our employers.
Our mission at the Data Coffee Break podcast is to inform you and help you grow in this always changing data field.
Follow us and get into the conversation with the community on our LinkedIn page and Instagram.
See you next Tuesday, and until then, keep your data caffeinated.